Alright, so for part 2, we're starting off with the wire wheel chucked up in the drill. And so what I've done is I've actually clamped my drill to the base of my workbench top, and then I'm going to use this quick release clamp to hold the trigger down to spin the wire wheel. And if I need it to stop, I'll just hit the quick release to release the trigger and go from there. So let's just get started. Okay, so as you can see, it's not just completely shiny. This is the blade. But what that wire wheel did is take off all of the raised, rusted parts, the pitting. And because it's the blade, what I will do after I finish with this is lap it out on some sandpaper and get it completely flat and flush like I would any other tool. I just want to give it the love that it deserves. And so I'm pretty much done with this for now. I might come back and see if I can get more of the black off, but it is smooth to the touch aside from some slight pitting in the blade. So I'm just going to keep on going. So this cleaned up quite nice. Chip breaker did. Quite pleased with that considering all the pitting that's on it. Now for the worst one. This guy. I have no clue how this is going to turn out. But you never know. Alright, so not bad. It's not super pitted. So what I'm thinking is if I sand it along with the blade, this will shine up real nice. So next are just the screws, and I think I am going to try the plain base, the spoke shave base, and just see how it goes. This is pretty easy to control, so just keep on going. Just in time, my battery's about to die, and this is, I think, as polished as it's going to get with that wire wheel. So next is sanding, lapping it out, and then polishing all of the parts. Okay, so the next step that I'm going to do is try to flatten the things like the blade and the bottom plate with some sandpaper. And a little trick that I learned is just a little bit of water or some soapy water on a glass plate will actually not move near as much and not have to use a spray adhesive for this. And so this plate, I actually got it in a kit of the Veritas Waterstone Pond, and I'll do a video on that later because it's a really cool kit that you can get. But this is completely flat, so I know that the sandpaper is going to be also. So what I'm going to do is, the most important thing that's flat is the back, which is this, because it has a chip breaker. So I'm just going to go this motion. As you can see, it's already starting to flatten. Take some of that gunk off. So now I just keep doing that. So once I get it how I like it, I'll move up to 320 and so on. Alright, so this is much better than what it was. So now I'm going to attack this side and see what I'm left. As you can see, there's a little bit still. And I think it's just from there's no life in the blade left. And so this is actually twisting. So I don't want to just continue to get it out and then it eventually just be paper thin. It's already pretty thin. So I'm going to work on this side and see what I come out with. Alright, so that is that. There's a little hollow on this side of the blade. I'm not really going to fiddle with it just because I've got the part right behind the edge of the blade flat, and I'm only going to sharpen this once just to say I used it. After that, it's just going to go into my personal collection. But next is the chip breaker. It cleaned up pretty well. I'm not really going to fiddle with it much, but what I do want to do is file this edge down. And why? It's because the purpose of this is to apply pressure right behind the blade, so as it cuts the wood, the shavings go out and the blade doesn't chatter. And most spoke shaves, the bevel, or at least the spoke shaves that I have, the bevel sits up and the blade is just thicker. So this is a pretty interesting design. So I want this little curve to lay flat on the blade. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take it, I'm going to lock my hand in, till I get a shiny edge all the way across. But that's got it. Let's see if you can see the shimmer. There it is. Alright, next is this. And so it's significantly thinner than the blade. So I think what I'm going to do is just start with a fine grit of sandpaper and go from there. So here's some 320. Alright, so here's the bottom. It's not completely shiny. The pits go pretty deep, but it's a very thin piece of metal. So this is quite sufficient for me. I'm sure I'm going to say that a lot with these parts because they're just so old and they were pretty neglected. But it's in significantly better shape than it was. Alright, so last but not least, this part right here and that part right there should be shiny. So I can either roll it, because it should just be the high spots, or I can just hand sand it. I'm going to give it a shot and try rolling it and see what happens. My sandpaper will stop moving. Ta-da! So there's a really low spot in this corner right here, and you might have noticed that I actually put the blade in and I just backed it off because I noticed that the bottom of this brass piece is actually curved with this, and so I assembled it how it would go, and that way when I'm filing it down, this piece is going to be flush with this. It won't cause any interference when I go to use it. Alright, so now that everything's been sanded and wire wheeled, that concludes part 2. Part 3 will be the polishing and sharpening, and then the big reveal. So thanks for watching, and then hopefully y'all will enjoy it, and I always look forward to reading y'all's comments. So until next video, see y'all.